Welcome to the latest episode of Byte Club, MTM's regular conversation with the best and brightest minds in the world of software development. I'm your host, Michael Underhill. I head up our developer consultancy work here at MTM. And today I'm joined by Rui Campos. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Nice to have me.
Great. Before we get properly into the meat of things, we'd love to just start with a very quick fire round. First up, the eternal debate, tabs or spaces?
Tabs.
What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Mad scientist.
Co-pilot, fad or game changer?
Unsure.
Most irrational fear?
You can't hit me on that one. I have no answer.
If you could only have 3 apps on your phone, what would they be?
Uber, Deliveroo, and Amazon.
VR or AR?
AR.
What book do you own but have never read?
So many.
Dark mode or light mode?
Dark mode.
Monolith to microservices, natural evolution or unnecessary complexity?
Unnecessary complexity.
And then finally, bunny hop or tabletop?
Bunny hop.
Thanks very much. Well, there's lots in there that I'm sure we'll come back to as we go through, particularly BMX tricks.
Yeah.
It'd be great just to get a bit of an overview and an introduction to you and your sort of your history and how you got into this world and how you got to where you are today.
A bit sports and a bit all over the place, to be honest. I did my education was mostly industrial design to begin with, then switched into IT engineering of all things. Ended up getting a job as a software developer, started building products there. I'm mostly in the oil and gas industry, then flipped into the web scene that was starting to boom up. Decided that I wanted to try consulting. Guess what? Ended up building a product for a consulting company, of all things. And it's been since then all the way to having my own startup, and then didn't work out as I expected. Did other things, worked with Gatwick Airport, Vodafone, Ocado, all the way to now working in life sciences with Automata.
Gotcha.
So fun.
Which bits of you sort of particularly stand out to you when you look back?
So many. My own startup was very fun. Doing a physical sensor for extreme sports, you could attach it to the BMX. You could be doing your own tricks, capture that, share with others, and effectively create this digital game, but based on live things that you were doing. That was lots of fun. Met a lot of people, came to London. I was at the time still in Lisbon, and that was my ticket here. I came here to stay 6 months, still here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably one of the highlights.
Where have your kind of specialisms laid? Where is it always been on the product side, product management, or is it kind of the coding side, or is it just been kind of quite fluid across everything?
Even today, I can say that I'm still working with engineers and working with product. I think it's the intersection of these two things that have been my key value add that I can bring.
How have you seen the role of kind of product and product management change over the course of your career?
Yeah, I came from a time where probably product management was more go-to-market and strategy, and not so much on delivery or real products, because digital products were probably still forming at the time. You would have more of the project managers and the program managers, but the function of a product person didn't really form until probably midway through my career, where I started to see really product management starting to become a bigger thing, and companies really focusing on the value that you can extract from product focus and really drive to market and achieving that value add into customers. So yeah, I think it's probably the last 15 years what I've seen product management becoming a real thing. But it's also interesting how in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, you're also seeing a rise of service design, and how people sometimes confuse the two, and how you're seeing an evolution of two sides and almost this battle happening.
What do you see as the distinction between those two roles?
So product, typically I associate more like you're trying to package something, it's going to be fully formed that you deliver into the market. Service design is more you're achieving a need, like whenever you go to a government service that you want to achieve online. That's a service. Typically, a service designer will be the person driving that with a lot of other people supporting this function. Whilst product could be more associated into what I'm doing with Automata, which we have a physical product and a digital solution in order to automate life sciences. And this is all bundled together as a platform. And for me, that's more product management.
Other than the kind of the rise of the role in and of itself, like in the last 15 years, how has that shifted? You know, we've seen things like the move from waterfall to agile, or the sort of just the rise of just ever more data to inform decision making and all that sort of stuff. Like, what are some of the big changes that you've seen within the role of product management in the last 15 years or so?
I think the more we got data, the more data got utilized. Because I can tell you, probably 20 years ago when I started, the amount of data available for you to make decisions was very low. And even the data that you had was very sparse. You can really collate or drive something out of that. I think it's more the natural utilization of everything that's starting to become available to you is the thing that you end up using. And if you are effective, you're going to use like the latest things that come into the market. Product manager today should be using ChatGPT, should be using AI as much as possible as kind of this compounding accelerator that you can add in. Data was just 15 years ago. We started to get data. Okay, great. We can start to compound on this and drive it forward. There's so many different things that I could say touch on this, like how cheap it was to now start to store the data, or previously it was very expensive. The rise of cloud and how you could start to collate all of these things in a single place, and anyone can just jump in. Because previously you had to put something in a data center. So anyone that wanted to do something would either have to go really big or wait. And today it's so easy. Anyone can just do it.
And I mean, with this, the kind of the rise of data, like how do you think about identifying the signal from the noise and separating the two?
How I approach it is identify the real needs and identify the real problem. And I see so many people still focus on the symptoms things and trying to launch products that address a symptom instead of addressing the real problem. And this is where I spend most of my time, is really what's the real problem that needs to be solved? And is there enough value in that problem that we can really drive something meaningful?
And all the while trying to avoid, what is it? Is it Goodhart's law, Goodhart's law about the sort of, as soon as a metric becomes a sort of KPI, it becomes meaningless, and, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Well, when everyone is using it, then you move on to the next one because your value add is now lower. So you have to check the next one.
Yeah. You touched on a sort of the fact that a kind of a good product manager today should be using ChatGPT. And I think at the start in that quickfire round, you said you were unsure about whether Copilot was a sort of a fad or a game changer.
Yeah, well, if you want to jump into the engineering side of things,
yes.
It depends on how you approach it and what are you trying to get out of it. Most of the code that was extracted in order to be trained into these models was code that was available online. Mm-hmm. And there's a good part of it, which is multiple people looking into the same thing and trying to ensure it has a minimal set of quality and security. But at the same time, if I look into the code of many different projects, the quality of how it was structured and created is probably not the best I've seen. It's also not the worst, which is good. This is why we're also seeing really good results coming out of these solutions. But at the same time, you're not seeing that high quality, really thought through approach in order to getting you the best modular solution that fits your problem. And most of these things are going to funnel you into the single way that the machine has identified as the main pattern that you should be following. It doesn't mean it's going to give you the best solution. It's going to give you like the median solution with a good enough quality, good enough security that you can now apply. So when you tell me, are we there yet? And is it a fad or not? I'm unsure, because can we train it enough? Can we start to evolve into more of these private data sets, private pieces of code that are really, really good? And how do you train for those? Because there's this unsupervised training that we're seeing being applied because of the amounts of data being there. But now if you have prime, like this prime stake that you want to bring in, are you going to train it in the same way, or are you going to educate it and do more of a supervised training on it so that it understands you even more and it can drive even better responses into this? So yeah, I'm unsure. I think I'll need another 2 years. I've seen technology evolving a little bit in that space before I can give you, I think it's there or not.
Do you have any kind of guidelines within your teams about sort of where it can be used, how it should be used, whether it should be used at all?
Where do you tend to not want to spend most of your time? And engineers will tell you, like, writing test cases.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great example, is if a product manager has put a really good acceptance criteria into it, and you have your code that any machine today, like any good learning algorithm can understand what your code is. If it understands your requirements, can do this match between these and create most of the test cases for you. And you get a lot more code coverage with a lot less effort.
Yeah. And I feel like we've heard things about how it's being used quite a lot to sort of use to document your code and make sure that that's up to speed, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Where often engineers know they should be doing this. It's a bit like eating your vegetables. You sort of should be using this, but you're not.
Is like someone that I heard say is like, when you need to hire someone, don't hire the person to do the thing that you love to do. Hire the person to do the things that you hate to do,
right,
and then you bring them in. So it's the same thing for an engineer, is they should be using these tools for the things that they don't like to do. Oh, I don't like to do this. I don't like to document. I don't like to put like test cases and go through that. I just want to be like a problem solver.
Yeah.
I want to go and architect this, and then I write it down. Some people don't even like to write the code. They like to create the solution. And these new, like, evolving AI pieces, they can really come out with, you describe what your solution is, what your architecture is, and they can then write the code for you. And then you just go and find you.
If you were chatting to a class full of 18-year-olds today, would you tell them that there is a long-term future as software engineers? Or are you worried that the role is going to be taken over by Copilot and so on?
I think we're in the transition phase. I think there will still be, for the next 10 years, possibly even 15 years, a role for software engineers. But I think it will evolve more into problem solving and into more creative problem solving, creative space. And I even think that the function of product and the function of an engineer may merge into something hybrid in the future. Because if you think of using something like ChatGPT, and the way that you can approach and solve most of these problems and take things out, if you have a view from how it should be done from a software engineering perspective and how to architect it, but you also understand the value add, and you use these tools, it's like you had 100 engineers at the tip of your hands to just come with something out. And as they evolve and give you more quality and give you more guidance and document it really well, you can even almost have like your fully packaged proposition to get to a customer in a relatively short amount of time.
Next question was going to be, how do you see the role of the product manager evolving? And it sounds like it's taking on a bit more of that technical chops.
Could be, but it depends, because in some companies, it could be that it's more about go-to-market. It's more about the marketing side and how do you kind of reframe a problem into something that you can reach out your audience, you can reach out your customers, you can entice them, you can demonstrate that value add. And they just immediately get it. And that's not something I can see ChatGPT really driving in the best way, because it needs context, it needs information in order to give you the best solution that it can think of. But that part is where you still need to capture and get a lot of insights before they get there. But I can tell, it's like the world could also evolve. We could all be more connected than we are today. And all of these databases can even lead to the PM ceases to exist as we know it today.
We saw kind of Brian Chesky, from the Airbnb CEO, cause a bit of a stir earlier this year about exactly this point, about, the fact that they've done away with the product management role. Like, how do you see that? Is that just incredible foresight, or
I think
oversight?
People probably misunderstood. And I also see it's like it's a journey. Companies go through a journey of the start to where they consolidate and stabilize. Like Airbnb has stabilized. So you needed product people at the beginning to define where we're going to put our efforts, what are our products. And they ended up with, okay, we have products for people that are going to host. We have products for people that want to find a place. We have products for just advertising. These are kind of the main products that they established. But now they reached the point where what you're doing is mostly fine-tuning. It's refining. It's almost closer to service design than it is to another function. And when you have a CEO that comes from a design background, I could tell it's like the forcing function will be, I understand design, and the way that I'm trying to achieve this is via this problem-solving design mindset. So I would naturally see it as an evolution more into service design for that company, and designers almost taking a lead versus product. Product probably becomes more focused on the go-to-market and the marketing side, which is kind of what he was alluding to.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I'd love to come back on to something you touched on a bit earlier about this kind of your work at Automata being this kind of blend of the physical product and the digital service. It feels like, you talked about working at Gatwick, working at Ocado. It feels like that's been quite a theme throughout your career, and of course your startup as well. This blend of software and hardware. How did you sort of land there? How does that differ from a world of kind of pure software design like Airbnb?
Well, I've done full digital, but I also did physical. And I think some of these I just stumbled upon. Others was because my education started with industrial design, and I ended up understanding how to build and design things and do physical things. And then I did my startup where I was doing something physical, very interesting, where I did from electronics to product design to the industrial pieces, getting it produced. And I think that enabled me afterwards for many other things, like when I was working with Ocado, which includes a physical, massive automated warehouse. And for me, it was easy to understand all of that. I was watching all of these things moving, and it was amazing and exciting. And I was a kid.
If you haven't seen the video of Tom Scott showing the interior of an Ocado warehouse, then pause this podcast now and go and watch it, because it is the most amazing thing you've ever seen. Sorry.
It's a massive grid. Yeah, I would say yes. Go and watch, because it's really fun. It just continued to build. And then I ended up applying for Gatwick Airport, and the physical side didn't have a really big impact on if I could take that role or not. But it ended up helping me because I could see a lot of more things on it and help on many different directions that probably I wouldn't if I didn't understand all of these more deep pieces.
Were you working at Gatwick during the pandemic? And I'm wondering whether that was...
No, I actually left when the pandemic hit because the airport grounded to a halt.
I was wondering if that might have been the perfect opportunity to sort of test out new ideas or something with no passengers around.
Well, initially it was thought, if this is just a temporary thing, then that it should be fine. But then it was very clear that this was going to be a bigger thing, because in the UK, what happened was this started 6 months before in other places of the world, and it started to affect other countries. And when it hit about March, that's when, like in the UK, it was very clear. This is not going to be something that it will be a month or two. We kind of have to stop. It's going to go in a different direction. And that's when reductions and all of those things, and it made sense.
Understood. What do you see as some of those kind of big differences then between the world of kind of just, pure digital and having to interface with hardware on a much more regular basis?
This is what most people won't see on the digital side, is the amount of errors and the amount of issues that you're going to find with hardware. It just increases by several orders of magnitude, because when you're interfacing with a machine, the machine will behave different than you expect. Most people are used to today interfacing with machines that everything just works, because there's been years of companies and development on many of those products to make it seamless and feel like hardware. It's so simple and clean and easy, when in fact it's really not. I think that the main thing on there is just the amount of errors and situations that you have to overcome that you're not prepared to if you're just coming from the digital world.
What does the QA process look like then? Is it the endless, or...
It depends on what you're trying to achieve and how far along something is. Like if you're developing a microphone and you want to put it to market, most likely the driver for most of this hardware already exists, and you're doing more signal digital processing in the back of it, which is more software and digital. But if you're doing something like we're doing at Automata, where you have instruments that process samples for life sciences. And these instruments probably were built 20 or designed 20 years ago, still being manufactured today with various degrees of automation ability that they can do. Then when you're trying to create a driver that interfaces with these things, it's going to be a lot harder because the situations and how precise they need to be and the amount of cases where they can be leading to a small failure, maintenance opportunities. And these are machines that were designed for humans to use like sporadically as they were doing these samples. And now we're putting them to be automated as like repeatable, everything happening. It depends on what you're trying to achieve and how stable it is, the feel that you want to jump and do something from a hardware perspective.
It also feels to me like sort of biotech, life sciences, aviation, these are quite high stakes industries.
Yes, they are.
How do you find that? I mean, does that take its toll or, again, with ever increased pressure on QA?
You do have a lot more process. You do have a lot more checks in order to ensure different quality checks to ensure that things do happen as they are expected. In an airport, if anything touches an aircraft, it needs to go through a set of procedures. So it's mostly your time to delivery is just bigger because you have to put a lot more stage gates along the way that are going to ensure alignment across the board, validation across the board, the quality is there. You run enough amount of tests that you're going to guarantee the outcome that is going to come out of that. And then you can apply it in many different ways. You could apply it from engineering, proper QA function. You can apply it by having a stronger customer success team, bigger customer success team that ensures that those things happen or that they're there with the customer during a phase of deployment that is going to ensure the ramp up and ensure the validation before it's signed off and says like, this is now working as intended. And we've validated all situations so we can now progress forward.
This isn't a world where you're shipping every Wednesday at 2 p.m.
No. It's very different if you're trying to ship really fast. In a world such as this, you're probably shipping fast, but the outcome of that work will come 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Because it ships, it goes through the different stage gates, and then it comes out.
And just talk about the transition to sort of leadership roles and kind of head of, director of, what are some of the kind of key lessons that you've learned as you've gone on that journey?
Oh, so many. And it depends on where you're starting and how you ramp up and the size of each company, because I think size dictates a lot. And the title sometimes doesn't really tell the whole story. Like, for example, a product owner at Ocado was a head of product in many other companies because of the size of the organization and what you were given to do versus a chief product officer or chief technology officer in a startup where it's probably more like a head of engineering in many other companies I know. So the title itself doesn't mean much. It's more the size and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's your focus, your day-to-day focus and where you want to drive things. And if you're just in a role of a product manager, your focus is more a little bit of strategic, but mostly on the day-to-day. And you can either be depending on how they frame a product manager and if they have product owners or not. It could be that it could be doing your day-to-day with the team, leading a squad, leading multiple squads, or just leading product owners, depending on the size of the organization and how they structure things. And then if you grow into a higher role, like a director or a head off, you're now starting to look more holistically. You're starting to define the full vision for the product. You're trying to get everyone aligned and how you can bring them on board. It's more about coaching and mentoring. Get them to be you or better than you, ideally. That's what you're trying to get without you doing the work. It's how do you put the templates? How do you, shows like there's a road with holes and a rope that you have to take. You're going to cross this forest. There's going to be swamps. And it's not telling them the road that they have to go through. It's like, prepare yourself for rain, prepare yourself for big amounts of mud, prepare yourself for all of these things and let them now go through the journey themselves. and feedback some of the learnings, because that's also where you learn a lot.
For sure. And are there elements of the sort of the day-to-day that you miss or wish you could spend more time with? Or
well, in startups, you end up doing a little bit of all of those things. And sometimes you actually want less. But when you have a more stable function, for sure, there are times where, I still enjoy coding. I still enjoy doing some of these things. But to be honest, I've done a lot of coding through my career. And now I'm at that stage where I really enjoy product and I want to stick to that. And I like to do code whereas more like for fun, less so because we do need to put something there.
One of the things I feel like I've come to realize more and more as I've spoken to more and more developers is this idea of doing your day job as a hobby as well. And like that is something that just will always take place on the weekends, in the evenings. People are always building their own websites, building their own little thing on the side. What have you got on the side at the moment? Or
well, to be honest, it's pretty packed at the moment. Because we're been building lots of things. I still enjoy doing like coding, learning new languages or trying new things. I've probably used all the mainstream languages. Most recent ones being Flutter, Go, and Rust. But now I'm playing a little bit with ML models, using a little bit of Python, and that's. When I have a little bit of time, that's probably where my default is to go and do a little bit on that side.
What are you trying to get these models to do, or is that?
Well, I'm trying to understand how far we can take some of these things, and where you now have open source models is how accurate and how good, and where are the pitfalls for these things, because I'm trying to learn from it on how can I and where can I apply them. Where could they be really useful? And since I have a technical background, I also understand product and value add into customers. Is what are we missing in the market that this could fill in a gap? And trying to see where that fits. And as this progresses, because since it's an early technology, this is where the fun is. Because things aren't fully formed. You can actually go to market faster or bring some value add that no one has seen. Whilst 5 years from now, everyone will know the big value adds. So that will be mainstream. Now is the time where we can make it fun.
So you've got Kaggle and Hugging Face bookmarked and are on there every day.
Not every day, but on the weekend when I have the opportunity to go and play with a few things, I keep tracking like the latest things on Hugging Face and It's a little bit of fun on that side.
Gotcha. We're probably at time, so thank you so much for coming in today and for the chat. It was really great to hear your thoughts. We've just got a couple of little things to say thank you. A mug of your
thank you.
And a set of chattering teeth as well.
Oh, nice. So nice. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again. Enjoy your time with Hugging Face and Kaggle this weekend.
Thank you.